Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Gray. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Inland and Wetland Commission of Monroe. It is May the 8th, and it is currently 7:09. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I need to introduce the members of the commission present here tonight. Starting on my right is Commissioner Ross Mastroianni. Next to me on my right today is Commissioner Lois Spence, who is our secretary. To my left is our vice chairman, Commissioner Jeff Shamus, who is a certified ecologist, a certified soil scientist, and a professional wetland scientist. Next is Don Roszinski, who is our office manager. Next is Scott Schatzeline, who is a licensed professional engineer and town engineer and our inland and wetland agent. And as always, Sarah Stroud, our recording secretary. Before we start, I'm supposed to read our Inland Wetlands mission statement. The objective and purpose of the Inland and Wetlands Commission is to provide for the overall protection and preservation of the inland, wetland, and watercourses within the town of Monroe. In the normal course of our meetings, we will hear public hearings and other applications. The protocol for public hearing is to have an applicant make a representation or presentation to the commission, during which and after which the commission will be asking the applicant questions. The commission will then review town, staff, and other independent comments. The meeting will then be opened up for public comment. I will ask that all comments be made to the chair or the commission. After any and all comments pro, in opposition, or of a general nature are made, the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond. It is not necessary that the applicant respond, but generally in their best interest to do so. There will be no further opportunity for new questions unless new materials are entered in as evidence or testimony during their response. Please keep any and all comment, pro and con, specific to inland and wetlands related matters. Other applications that do not involve public hearing will follow a similar format, with the exception that there will be no public comments allowed. The meeting follows our published agenda unless otherwise amended. Are there any changes to our agenda tonight?
There are. Under item 5, application hearing determinations, I need to add application I-06-26A1, file number 503. It's for 74 Enterprise Drive and it's an amendment to a previous approval.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now is a period of time reserved for public participation. This is a time when I invite anybody here that would like to make a comment or inquiry of a general nature as it relates to inland and wetlands and watercourses. Now is the time to make that comment, although it can't be about something on this agenda tonight. Is there something that you had, dear?
Yes.
Thanks. If you don't mind stepping up to the microphone and just your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Jill Stern. I live at 122 High Ridge Drive on the corner of Cross Hill and High Ridge Drive.
Okay.
Yes. And I'm here this evening to ask permission to dredge the stream around my property that is full of silt and branches, and the water now is fast approaching my house. I've had the soil tested. I've had an engineer. I have a letter from the engineer to say what needs to be done, as Scott has been to my house to look at the property. So I want to do this the right way. So what do I do next?
And you've met with Scott?
Yes.
You met with Scott?
Yes, he's been to my house.
Okay.
I had an initial site inspection. We did have a meeting scheduled to talk about this, but that never happened. We just never, you had canceled it, but I never heard from you.
I didn't realize I was supposed to have a meeting with you before coming here.
I mean, it's nothing saying you have to, but
Okay.
it typically I could kind of avoid the time that they spend on it. But you go ahead and guys can advise.
What I would suggest, again, and the commission, what I would suggest is that you meet with Scott, and he can
Okay.
guide you in there could be, what?
There's a process.
There's a process, and to
Yeah,
start that
that's-
process,
Okay,
that's not something that you would go through. So
Okay.
you would talk to the town staff, and they would advise you on the correct process. You
which
bring
you
your-
did.
bring-
You did advise me what to do next, which was to get the soil tested and get a letter from an engineer.
Okay,
Yeah.
Right.
So I skipped the step, obviously, of going back to
Right.
Scott.
that's what I mean. So if you would go back to the staff, and they could tell you what kind of application that you need to make,
Okay,
and whether this needs to be a full application or an agent approval, something that has to come in front of us, or something that he could approve without coming back to the commission
okay.
and going through a larger process. So that would be my suggestion to you. I don't know if anybody else has another suggestion, but
No, that's pretty much it, I think that's gonna need a full-blown, not full-blown necessarily, but it's gonna be a little bit more of a process because it is directly involving wetlands.
Yes, it is,
And
yeah.
it's activity in the wetlands, which
Yeah.
means that we do have to see it. They can't be an agent.
Okay.
Right.
So, so if you would go through Scott,
Okay.
he will direct you, and he's
Okay,
pretty easy.
hook you up with the right application.
Yeah.
You can help fill out the forms. If you've already have some information from an engineer, you're already ahead of the game.
okay,
But that would be the way to go about it.
okay, and then I'll see you all again.
Yes, once the,
Okay.
yes.
All right, and I will call you and make an appointment to do
Sure.
that.
Okay.
Thanks,
you very
ma'am.
much.
Have a good night. Good luck. So the next thing on our agenda that has anything is that thing that we added, I-06-26-A1, 74 Enterprise, and that's the application hearing determination.
All right, so we just got this yesterday, but some of you may remember that this was for a commercial development in the Pepper Street Business Park. The original approval included a building with a future building right next to it or attached to it. They built the first building, and there have been some outstanding issues that are still ongoing, so it's not fully complete, but they did much of the work. And they are looking to correct some of those, or complete some of those issues that are still outstanding. And in doing so, they also are looking to add on and enlarge the building into, let's call it the second phase. So they've submitted a set of plans. If you look at the second from last drawing, that shows you a red line of what was originally approved and what is there today. It included some activity that is into the regulated area further than was originally approved. In some of the area, you'll note in some of the other areas, it's a little less than what was originally approved. So I advised that they would need to go through this modification application before you, as the process to move forward with this thing. I'm looking for the application here. All right, so this is 74 Enterprise Drive, I-06-26. It is, it doesn't, because it's an amendment application, it doesn't go into great detail about the size of the lot and all that stuff. It's already something you've seen. This went through a public hearing. Donna is indicating that she didn't see any activity in terms of public comment.
So it's before us to,
Make the determination whether you want a regular review or a public hearing.
Regular meeting
again.
or a public hearing. It was originally public hearing.
Right, but there was no public input.
so, well, okay, so it's just the stuff that's, so let me, I guess, just for clarification, the stuff that's in red is what they
If you look
did.
on the right-hand side of the drawing, it says that the red is what was originally approved.
Right,
and the black is what they're proposing.
So what's been actually
yeah,
done?
but the black's not on that plan.
The black is on the plan.
It's not on the
What-
same, it's not on the same plan.
Yeah, what's been done is that first, the building on the left-hand side has been completed. The outstanding issues involve, I don't know if I want to use the word violation, but the uses on the property were above and beyond what was originally approved. There's a lot of storage and equipment and materials there. We've gotten them to eliminate that to some degree, and the building in this proposal, the goal is to put up a building, get some of that stuff inside, bring on a new tenant, clean the property up, and
Is it
this-
also,
is
is
this
it
the-
removing the riprap and putting in plantings?
well, there's a small area where, on the right-hand side, I didn't want to get too far
Oh,
into
yeah,
this.
no, I'm just saying.
But there was a area on the right-hand side of the property, as you're looking at the drawing there, on the north side, where they went further into the upland review area than the original plan allowed. The original plan called for that area to be used as a sedimentation basin and then be restored. And there is riprap down in that area, and there was an area disturbed. They're proposing to do some landscaping there.
Yeah, and the sediment in the detention basin is not built the way it should be.
I didn't really pick up on that, so.
Because the way that
The detention basin wasn't part of the original plan. The detention basin was built as part of Pepper Street Business Park. So that was part of the subdivision before I was even here. And then they came along and developed this lot. So the basin, my understanding, was built as part of the subdivision process, not the lot.
So, but they have red in the basin showing, that indicates to me that they did that.
Well,
The only red in the basin is the riprap.
Yeah.
And so it looks to me like the basin was built as proposed, except that and I don't know if, I'd have to check the original plan. I don't know if they just didn't go further, but,
And I guarantee the reason why that riprap is like that is to cut off the flow so it doesn't short circuit and go right out.
oh, the other, well, to be honest with you, the last time I was out there, this basin is not even approachable. There's so many invasives in it, and they're so thick, I couldn't get to the inside of the basin.
I'm curious though,
So
if they
that-
did something with riprap down there.
Yeah, so that's something, I'll look into that for you, and I'll also talk to Public Works. I'm not sure, I believe the drainage system is, I'm not sure if all of that is deeded out and the easements are to the town yet, because this development, believe it or not, is still not deeded to the town.
Hmm.
So I'll check that out, but I don't believe that basin was part of their original obligation for this lot.
So what part of the drainage have they done? Well, I mean, that's what I'm a little confused on, is which, I know
If you
there's
look
certain
at
stuff that we
sheet, if you
approved.
look at the second from last sheet,
Yeah, on 1/1?
all of that drainage inside the lot that goes to the basin,
Yeah,
that's all done. If you look at the red, you can see the gray just offset from that a bit. So in one part, it's a little closer, it's actually in most of it, it's closer, it's further away from the wetlands.
okay. So the gray then is what,
The gray is what's
that
there.
essentially an as-built?
The what?
Is it essentially like a very rudimentary as-built? The
It
gray?
is, well, the gray is what was approved.
But the
No,
red was
The
approved.
gray is what was built. Sorry.
That's what I want to know. The gray
Right.
was built
The
and the
gray is
red
built,
was
and
approved.
so, yes, it is somewhat of an as-built.
Okay,
But you can get into the weeds, excuse the expression of that.
right.
when you-
Okay, well, that's fine. I just wanted to know what we were looking at.
But I felt that it was sufficiently varied from the original approval so that it should come back before you.
Yeah, so essentially there's no plantings along the wetland boundary in the back of the parking lot then.
There are plantings, if you look very closely, I think there are things there, you just can't see them, but I'm not sure about that.
Looks like riprap.
I just got this yesterday, so, or actually, I didn't get it till today.
So they just afternoon.
Yeah, so,
Well-
we can definitely check on that, that'll come out in the review.
I mean, we could always send it to regular meeting and make a determination that it needs a public hearing if we get more information that leads us to a public hearing. We still have the time frame to make that decision, right?
Yeah, we do.
You would have to have it noticed differently.
Well, I mean.
No, the first meeting would be, if we're gonna say now it's a regular meeting, goes to just a regular meeting. At that meeting, if we say, no, this deserves a public hearing, significant impact, we're well within our time frame of 65 days to make that determination.
If you get additional information. Now, remember that it would be whether or not it's in the public interest or whether or not you think it's a significant activity.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and significant activities are usually involve wetlands proper.
Mhm.
And so the as-built that they're giving is showing that they did
Doesn't-
not encroach into the wetlands.
Doesn't have to impact wetlands to be a significant impact
Okay.
activity. Not saying this is, I'm just saying that I think, my opinion is we go to a regular meeting, but
So make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
I think that's the first one I've ever made.
Oh, it's about time.
All time. So I have a motion by Commissioner Chavez to move this to a regular meeting, right, and a second by Commissioner Spence. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes unanimously, move to regular meeting.
I forget which one this is.
Okay. Next.
So are you here for a particular matter? Yes.
74 Enterprise Drive.
Oh, okay. You just wanted to
There
know
we
what's
go.
going on.
I didn't want you to wait any longer than you had to. So I would move to your thing right away, but we already did that.
There you go.
Okay,
Okay,
Very good.
all right. So next on our agenda is deliberations. Item sheet 2019-02, 11 Glen Hollow Drive, Ventura, second floor addition, new garage, driveway modification and detention. We've all had the opportunity to review staff's letter that we asked him to compose, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Move to approve as drafted.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Spence to approve as drafted, second by Commissioner Shamus. All those in favor say, oh wait, do you have to do your thing or do you want to do it after?
Time after you have the second. So, just for the record, as requested, I put together a draft. The draft is 7 pages long. First page lists the application information and the submission data. Second page talks about the findings, 2 findings listed. The voting record is on there, and then the start of the conditions to be addressed within 60 days. Page 3 goes through the specific items, 1A through J, 2, 3A through D, 4 of specific things that you were looking for conditions. Page 4 goes through the timing and expiration, items B, 1 through 6. C, the conditions addressed prior to construction, items C, A through G. Page 5 goes through the conditions to be addressed prior to the issuance of CO, D 1 through 3. Conditions to be addressed prior to the release of the bond, E 1 through 4. Standard requirements, F 1 through 10. And then on page 6, lists the items that are statements and clarification, standard items in all the letters, and that extends on to page 7, and that is the evidence.
Thank you. Okay, so we have our motion and our second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? So
Yay.
approved. Out of the woods on that
That was a
one.
long one.
Not an easy one to write.
All right.
The IPU is next.
You want me to continue on, or? are
No,
you reading?
IPU is next.
What's that?
Are you reading, or you want me to continue on, or?
I'm waiting on you.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm asking. All right, so since there were no bond time extensions, the inland wetland agent activities, permitted uses as of right, we had one for 396 Elm Street, which was an emergency septic system repair, so I went ahead and signed off on that. But I do need your confirmation on whether or not you consider a emergency septic repair in a previously disturbed and developed yard area. If you consider that a, what's the word I want? I always
Permitted
forget.
use as of right,
A
jurisdictional. rule.
jurisdictional ruling you have to make. I always forget. So do you agree that that would be you're making a
I'm sorry, I
jurisdictional
didn't hear you
ruling
because I
that
was trying to figure out the agenda, because I was on the wrong date. And so I'm like, we missed
So-
something, so I didn't hear what you said.
So I issued a permitted use as of right, as we procedurally typically do, for a septic system repair, an emergency repair, that the health department was involved in. This is in someone's yard, it's in an area that's already been disturbed and developed and utilized as a yard. So I went ahead, typically, I wouldn't sign off on a permitted use as of right until you make a jurisdictional ruling that it is in fact a permitted use as of right. So it was an emergency, I went ahead and did that, and for the record, I just wanted you to state that you agreed with that and in terms of a jurisdictional ruling.
I agree.
Is it in upland review area?
It's in an upland review area. It's in other words, if someone comes in and they are gonna do something in their yard, they would get, because it's their previously disturbed and developed area, they would get an agent approval, an administrative approval to do that work. What we've done in the past, and I've talked about this with the commission, is that if the health department goes out and gives them an order that says, hey, you've got breakout and it's a health issue, we want you to fix this immediately, then I've told them that, hey, you can't just go out and do it, you really need to come to the inland wetlands department and tell me about it so I can make sure that they have E&S control or they're not doing something that doesn't make any sense. So they do that. So procedurally, we decided that, in an emergency, let's give them a permitted use to do that. And then you guys could weigh in after the fact. If there's an issue you're concerned about, then I could go back and dig into it, and if need be, make it an agent approval or make them come before the commission, that kind of thing. But procedurally, we've had a couple of we get a bunch of them a year, and if it's in their yard, we figure there's no problem in just doing it as an agent, as a permitted use, because it's maintenance. Now, if it involves something more than that, if it involves digging it up, bringing fill in, and literally rebuilding the whole thing, then that's not the case. They gotta get a permit for that.
I guess I was just trying to understand what a repair of a failed septic system, that could, from what you just described, it could be on a whole different scale of.
It varies, right?
Right.
It could go from replacing the septic tank and
Right.
some of the piping to,
Leaching fields.
repairing a piece of the leaching field. Sometimes it could be a tree root that's like totally disrupting it and it's breaking out kind of thing. Or that's would fall into this. If it involves digging it out piling material over there while it dries out or decontaminates, and then bringing fill in and rebuilding the whole thing, then they need a permit for that. And they usually will get an agent approval for that.
Right, I guess it's just the broad category of saying it's a permitted as of right use to repair your septic system.
Correct.
That's too broad is what I'm saying, because
Well,
that
you're
could
leaving the
include leaching
judgment of
field.
that up to me, because
Okay.
I'm the one who signs off on it. And so if it is too
Well,
involved,
no, because if we're saying it's a failed septic system that's being repaired, and that's an as-of-right use, then how could you make a different interpretation saying, well, no, that's an agent approval, even if it fits into the category of a failed septic system?
because the permitted uses as of right that are listed in your regulations are kind of general. They're not real specific. And the way that the statutes are written, the act is written, it says that the commission, you know, and when I first started this process, I always thought that a permitted use as of right was like, okay, it says it's permitted, you just get them to fill it out and you give it back to them. And then the more I learned about it, the more I realized that the act says that the permitted use as of right includes a jurisdictional ruling that it is in fact a permitted use as of right. And unfortunately, the jurisdictional ruling is done by the commission and not by me as the agent, which kind of, in some ways, almost defeats the purpose of it. But the problem is that if the health department has an emergency and they want it fixed, if I do an agent approval, you have to wait 15 days. So that's why I do it with a permitted use as of right, because it eliminates that 15 days because it's a health hazard. If there is some neighbor that complains, or if you as the commission say, hey, this isn't right, this is bigger than that, you know, this is a problem, or there's 3 people sitting out here that have an issue with this, then you can not sign off on that retroactively, and we can turn it into whatever you want.
So you're saying this is a case by case?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying this is just a
No,
category.
this is for 396 Elm Street.
No, I understand, but I thought you were just saying, the way that the way I was hearing it was, we were setting a category of a
No.
permitted as of right use
No.
going forward.
No.
But if it's a case by case, then.
Yeah, I'm saying
Yes.
typically,
Yes.
if there's an emergency repair on a septic system,
Yeah.
this is
yeah,
how we
Yeah.
handle it. But I always,
Gotcha. Understood.
all right? So do you guys agree?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you ever want more information, let me know, because I can do that too.
The last thing I want is more information.
All right, next item on the agenda is administrative review. We do have one for you. It's 244 Webb Circle. And this interesting property, because
Looks interesting.
what we discovered on this is like several of the other ones, a number of the other ones. It was approved in one layout and apparently built in a different layout.
Unusual.
Interestingly, in this one, the approval actually included more impact to wetlands. And when they built it, you know, the impact to the wetlands was really the septic system. When they built it, the septic system was built far from where it was approved, which is much further away from the wetlands. That's just a little bit of background information. However, there has been encroachment on the property, unapproved filling within the upland review area, filling within a conservation easement, unpermitted shed within 100-foot upland review area, non-permitted placement of fill on the property, disturbance on adjacent property, and lists of various records and maps. Then we get to the drawing itself. You'll see the orange line is the property line, kind of goes off the map here. The yellow line with the crosshatch is the conservation area. The greenish blue shading is the wetlands. And this, by the way, this plan and the information on here was taken from a survey and an approval plan from the commission, so we had accurate information. And the pink area here and here and back here, you would think back here is the area that's been encroached upon. However, the approval, if you look closely, you'll see this green dash line. That is the limit of the window of disturbance that was approved as part of the original approval for this. So this house was supposed to be back here. And so therefore, the house was built in the upland review area. I don't know how it got a CO, all I know is it's there, they got a CO, they're living there.
When was this approved, Scott?
Let's
Looks
see.
like it was
It probably
05.
says here somewhere, doesn't
Yeah,
it, but I didn't get
probably
this.
does.
05?
Oh, it was before us, okay. Yeah, a lot of things happened in 2005.
The proposed subsurface wastewater disposal, it was approved in 98.
I was looking at the application, that was 197.
Yeah, so we're back in 97 and 98, this happened.
Okay.
So way back. So, I think these are new people. They just bought it, and this whole area back here was all cleared and disturbed, and the kids were running their ATVs back here and motorbikes, and it was like a big track. I'm not sure what these people are gonna do with it, but that area is outside the upland review area. But, there's been these areas in here that were disturbed, so.
And is that conservation easement area cleared?
This is, yes, it has been cleared. I think there's some pictures here. So if you're looking at the house, the area, I think the conservation area is over here, so this is the fill. You can see the state of the yard. Here's the pile, and the fill's over here. Quite a bit of disturbance. We got called out. I have to look at the report to see what the.
Diving board?
You can see no, those are pot utilities.
Yeah, they dug a pond.
It does look like it does.
It does.
You can see the yard, like how it's all clear and disturbed.
So that the.
Recent, too.
Yeah, I
looks
was gonna
like.
say
Yeah.
the disturbance is very recent, okay.
Well, he's been dumping
Well,
fill.
there's a
they
machine right
wanted
there.
to do, they
He's
wanted,
been dumping fill, because he
I
wants to
think
put a
the
pool in the
story
back.
was they wanted to put a pool in and an addition.
Yeah, according to this, there was a pool in the front, and it's gone, so he thought he could just put one in the back now.
Yeah.
Is this the new owner? or the
Yes.
old
New
So
one.
they just started in, they thought they could do all this stuff, and we went out and took a look at it, and it's a lot.
owner? Yep.
Oh, goodness.
You can see here, that there was a considerable amount of disturbance here with the equipment and piles of material. I think it was a contractor. They moved out. We have a violation and a problem where they moved into. They bought another house down the street, and the problem is back. So we're looking at that as well. But this material was all removed when they left the property. And so this area has been cleared and disturbed, but it was within the window that was approved for disturbance originally, so we didn't make it an issue. All right, here's the approved plan. So you could actually see where the house was in back instead of over here. The septic system was way out here next to the wetland. So they moved the house over here and they moved the septic system back there.
So one thing about that work in the approved area,
Yeah,
that it can be an issue if the ground hasn't been stabilized. In other words, if stockpiled, they move dirt around, it's
and
whatever
the
it
ground
is,
has not been
and it's not stable, then that's an issue.
Yep, and it has not.
And they put the septic area in an area that wasn't perked, right?
No, I think back in the day, they put this, back in the day when this kind of thing was done, I believe that what happened was Inland Wetlands grants their approval, and they get their approvals, then they go out to build the house, and back in those days, it seems like they just made changes.
Mhm.
And the health department said, oh, well, this isn't a very good place for the septic system, it's too close to the wetlands, it's, not because they were trying to protect wetlands, but because they were trying to get the system to work properly, So they say, oh, it's much better back here, we want you to put the system back there, and they just did it. And nowadays, there's communication between the different
Right.
departments, and they're not just allowed to do that. So, that's kind of the story that unfolded. So,
Awesome.
you want me to issue a notice of violation and?
Please.
Okay, going on to the minutes.
Okay, moving on to the minutes of, we'll take April 10th, 2018 first, I believe.
Do the other ones first, and let's see if I can swim these, because I gotta abstain on the other ones.
Okay. So Lois is abstaining from the 10th, but she would like to read them again, so why don't we just move
No,
on?
the 10th I'm okay on this, the 24th I can't do.
Okay. So let's move on to the 24th, while Lois looks at the 10th. Minutes of April 24th, 2019, I'll entertain a motion. Either Ross or
I wasn't here.
we can't act.
Okay. And they're tabled.
Well, no, we could do the 10th.
We can do the 10th, not the 24th.
Right.
This is only me and you were here that day.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Let's see. I'm gonna just,
So as to the minutes of the April 10th, 2019 regular meeting,
Sarah did a great job.
excellent job.
yeah, looks good to me.
So is that a motion by Commissioner Shamus and a second by Commissioner Spence?
Yes, it is.
Make a motion.
All
And
those
I'll
in
second
favor,
it.
all those in favor of approving the minutes as drafted of the April 10th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries unanimously. And we will table the meeting, the minutes of April 24th, 2019. As we don't have enough voting members present here tonight. Anything from the Regulation Amendment Committee,
No,
Public Outreach Committee?
no.
All right then.
Motion?
We have a motion to,
Adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Spence. Do I
Oh
hear
my
a
God.
second?
Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shamus.
This has gotta be a. we're
All those in
on
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned.